So you can't really see the tunnels here because the quality is kind of bad, but maybe if I spin it around like this and kind of give you a angle, you can kind of see the white spot in the background of the black soil, and that's the tunnel that she's in, or the chambers. She's not really moving around. In fact, she's trying to avoid the light. I'm kind of disturbing her right now, but yeah, I've been trying to observe these ants in a more dim setting so I can observe their behavior, normal behavior, so to speak. And observing normal behavior is difficult when you need to be able to see. I don't have a fancy infrared camera or a black light, so I have to expose them to some light, which is not normal, as they're usually underground for most of their lives. But after reading around a bit, queen ants such as these do acclimate to captivity well, as opposed to a mature colony being taken into captivity. So this is a good start. So let's see if we can shine a flashlight here. Down here, there's a sort of tunnel where you can see that she's ventured down to this damp paper towel cloth as sort of perhaps a means to intake water. That's really the only thing you need to provide these ants, these queen ants, in their initial development of their colony, because they're fully claustral, which means that they have all their food stores necessary. Perhaps later in the winter I might provide her some honey and peanut butter, sugar and protein, because I don't think she'll be giving any brood till spring. So it's really interesting to see that when I removed her from the initial container that I had, the one with the paper towel and the plastic container, she burrowed down to perhaps 4 inches in. The container itself is filled with 8 inches of dirt, and excuse me, right now I'm going to cover her while I'm not observing her. And when I took her out, she'd already lost her wings from her nuptial flight. And after putting her into her new container, she was a bit stressed, so I left her 3 days undisturbed in a dark room. And it's been about, I'd say, 5 days to a week. Let's check when I took her out of isolation. Removed from isolation on day 6, and today is day 12. So it's been about 6 days since she's been removed from. Please tell me you're recording. Okay, good, you're recording. It's been about 6 days since she's been placed into her new container and removed from isolation. And during that time, I did not make any observations for 3 days. During day 8, the last observation, there was no fungus in the soil. The soil's a little bit drier, especially at the top, because the water's at the bottom. My initial observations were no movement. After perhaps 5, 10, 15 seconds after my initial observations, she started moving along the glass wall. Let's see, detailed observations. She moved to the starred location, and I marked a star in the container. I think you noted, if you go back to the earlier part of the video, I marked a starred location there. I starred part of the container. And she typically tends to stay around that area every time I observe her. If she's elsewhere in the container, she ends up moving there towards the middle end of my observations. She appears healthy, not too stressed. She's not running to the top of the container or running around. She's just typically staying still, so that's good. My initial observations during this day were exposed only to dim light, and of course detailed would require some strong light. Yeah, and during that day there was no tunneling. She was moving around dirt, so I'd say, if you can imagine a cliff of dirt and then the sheer of it. Say you're on a beach and there's a top part of the cliff and the sheer, and then the beach goes down, so here like this and up. That's kind of what it looked like. 2 days later, after not having any, or actually 3 days later of no observations, I checked today in the afternoon, and I was surprised to see, a fully dug out chamber where she typically tends to stay now, and mind you, it's right across from that starting location, so she must have picked that early on when I first marked that location, when I took her out of isolation. And then you can see an adjacent tunnel kind of towards the front if I'm facing that starting location, and her chamber's in the back. Towards the front, down towards that damp paper towel. So that's interesting that she created this tunnel, over the course of, I'd say when did she start moving dirt? Let's check. I did note the time she moved dirt around, and I even think from day 6, when I moved her out of isolation, to day 12, she's been moving dirt around. That dirt has not stayed in one location. It's the geography of the dirt in her container has changed almost day to day. And I should note that the actual level of the soil when I first put it in there was lower. So she's been moving dirt on top of the tops of the furthermost topsoil, and burrowing down, down towards the damp paper